Hi, my name is Andy Lyon and I'm from Blacklight Advisory. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce the next vlog in our series that is set out to explore some of the big questions in organisational development at the moment. Today we have Ajit Menon, my co-founder and partner at Blacklight, in discussion with Olivia Stone, who is the MD and co-founder at Tucker Stone. They're a executive search firm that specialise in HR and change. And the question that they're exploring is one I guess we all have in mind, which is what is the future of work going to be post-lockdown? As we emerge from the pandemic, are we going to return to what work was like? Is that even possible? And if not, well then what will work look like? And what transition will we need to go through before that becomes a new norm? So the two of them are going to explore some ideas, challenge each other on what perhaps the future could look like. And I hope that it will provoke your thinking and get you discussing and talking about what the future of work will be like for you, because I'm sure it's not going to be the same for everyone. Thank you. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Olivia. It's so great to speak to you again.
It's lovely to speak to you too, Ajit.
Spring has sprung. I can see it's nice and sunny where you are.
It is. It's very warm apparently outside. Not that I've seen it yet.
No, it is. It is quite warm. It's beautiful, actually. I'm really pleased that it's a nice Monday morning and beautiful and sunny, which is the perfect way. Thanks for doing this. I'm just really curious to hear your experiences, what you're seeing, especially in terms of the industry, because you sit in a very interesting and unique part in that you know what's happening in organizations, but you also know what's happening in the big pool of talent that's out there. I think what we've been thinking about, what we've been working with a lot over this year, is how organizations are going to create that environment, the right culture for people who are coming in based upon everything that's happened to us over the last year. And the pandemic kind of hit us in the face and things changed very, very quickly. But things are not going to go back to the same. I think that we're all kind of anticipating what the new world is going to look like. So I'm just curious, what are you seeing out there? What are candidates telling you? What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, to pick up on your point, we are in a very privileged position. It's incredible, being a member of a 9-person team at Tucker Stone. We have access to information from organisations that are so much bigger than we are, and yet we're all struggling with this same phenomenon. Doesn't really matter whether or not you're one person, you're 10 people, you're 100, you're 10,000. Life has changed, working life has changed. But I think the other thing that's really interesting is that over the last 12 months specifically, everyone's gone through their own journey of what the future will be like. We were talking last summer about, we'll never go back to the office. It's changed beyond measure. And I think actually it hasn't changed beyond measure. My analogy is that we are like a spring that has been stretched really, really, really hard beyond what we thought we could be stretched. And at some point that will be released and we will go back a little bit to where we were. We won't be as tightly sprung as we were once, but we are still the same people we were. We are still the same organizations that we were before all this, but things will have changed along the way. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I think we've been challenged in ways that we never thought we could be. And the working world has changed, especially in really old-fashioned organizations where they never thought that they could make the change to complete working from home remote policies. That was never considered before. They now have had to do it, and it has been proven that they can. And then there are other organizations that always had this flexible working sort of philosophy, and they weren't affected as much as others. So what will happen? I think the word everyone's using is hybrid. There will be some sort of hybrid, and it's a catch-all phrase for a little bit of what was and a little bit of what is, and a little bit of what will be. But there are lots of practical things to consider. It's all very well going, well, we're going to have a hybrid model, but what does that look like when you're a manufacturing business? What does that look like when you were a global organization anyway, and you never saw half your team because you worked via video conference? Nothing will have changed there. You know, if you've got people who have to operate heavy machinery, they'll still have to operate heavy machinery. They can't do that from home. They never could. They probably never will be able to. So it's the first thing that people are having to do is work out who can change the way that they work in an organization, and who can't. So it's org design, the future of the workforce. You know, and these are big questions. And they're, you know, huge things that everyone's battling with to a larger or a lesser degree. And then you overlay culture on that. You know, your own attitude as a leader or as an employee about working from home. And then you add to that people's own levels of comfort, risk, fear of COVID, fear of working together again, you know, and it's just the most complicated question that anyone's facing. And actually, we're not getting a huge amount of guidance from the government at the moment. Everything's strangely quiet. And even this morning, you know, we were talking about Tucker Stone. What are we going to do? When are we going to move back to an office? Because there's no question we want an office as an organisation. We don't want to stay working remotely anymore. But it's a question of how and when. That's the most practical level.
You know, that's so interesting. This morning, I was working with a group and we were kind of talking about exactly this, you know, as leaders, what do they need to be considering as things start changing back? They started talking about this hybrid, but the hybrid in itself creates other kind of complications because it's an issue of if some of us are working from the office and some of us are not, then who's in and who's out and who's in the know and who's not? And from a perspective of leadership, how are you communicating? How are you holding the team together? You can create a fantastic organization design, but it's all that unseen stuff about how you're managing and maintaining the relationships that can trip down even the most beautiful of organization designs. Isn't it?
Yeah, and we're all such, you know, we were programmed before just to go into the office and do our job. And you'd look at your diary and you'd go, right, I've got this meeting and I've got this meeting. And then all of that changed and we did everything online. And it was very easy to do meetings because you could just, you know, go on one and then 20 minutes later you'd be on another one, or you'd just, you know, be doing a little bit of work in between meetings. And now people are going, well, we'll use the office space in a new way. You know, we'll use the office for collaboration and innovation, which is easier said than done, because what does that actually mean? Will all the right people be in the office at the right time on the right day for that collaboration to happen? Or will you find that actually only half the people that you needed were there and then you'll be on Zoom with the other half? You know, the logistics is going to be tricky just on a practical level. And then there's the difficulty, which is, I think this is a Gartner piece of research, which is that, you know, economically, we have been productive at home. Yes. Productivity has been higher than anyone thought that it would be. And it has been, therefore, a benefit for an organization to have home working people. Now, no one really thought that was going to happen. You know, there were trust issues. Will people be outside sunbathing? You know, will they just be having a good time at home, or they'll be distracted by their children or their families? But actually, you know, we've heard far more anecdotes about massive burnout, people not switching off, overworking, you know, especially in the HR communities. That was definitely the case. The first 3 or 4 months of lockdown last year, when a lot of people were able to enjoy the sunshine, HR was not. They were working all the hours that were available to sort out furlough and working from home and well-being and leadership capabilities and communication and all the things that kept the show on the road. But I think the main thing is that those organizations that thought they couldn't, and they never wanted to work from home because they, you know, it was a culture of presenteeism, have been proven that actually we can work at home if you give us a chance. And that's upset a lot of people who are more old-fashioned in their views, I think. Yeah. Don't you? Because, you know, actually people can work from home and they can do a great job. Not saying that it's preferable for people's engagement and experience and well-being, but the naysayers have been proven wrong. Companies still exist with people working from home.
We spoke about this in our first vlog, actually. We spoke about this whole idea of how we've all been so productive. And the question is, have we been productive? Or has that been, because there's so much anxiety around, being manically engaged in tasks? We've never been busier than we have been this year. And it's an interesting thing. It's another way of looking at it. But just to in terms of what you're saying is that, yes, there will be organizations will now, I mean, we didn't have the choice this year, work from home or not, we had to. There was no choice. So the change was in effect uncontrollable. But going into this new space, organizations might create that choice. With choice comes agency. And if people can therefore have control over their lives, it might be a different thing around how productive we are.
Yes.
And in terms of productivity, perhaps it's not just about hitting the numbers. It's how we hit the numbers. So, we're creating different kind of workspaces, different kind of team relationships. That's going to be interesting. So I was just thinking with relation to that, Olivia, so what are you noticing in terms of what kind of capabilities are organizations looking for? Are they hiring anything different to what they were hiring before? Are they looking for different kinds of people? Well, what is your experience?
I don't think they're looking for different kind of people. I don't think things have changed that dramatically in the HR leadership space. There are hotspots within the HR space that are in demand, particularly at the moment. Diversity and inclusion is one. Absolutely, undeniably, it's a very busy area, and particularly for us. We have been working on D&I searches pretty much constantly for the last 12 months. So that is a new area of the HR space.
Can I just?
I think the
sorry to I'm talking over, but something struck me. The D&I agenda is going to be an interesting one in the hybrid space as well, because different people will have different needs.
Yes.
And so that's interesting as well. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think with this sense of fairness, I think, is one that we need to grapple with the whole way of working and the concept of hybrid, because what is troublesome for a lot of HR functions is, how can we create policies? How can we create a sense of what the future of work is going to look like, and be consistent? Because different people will need different things. So having the whole workforce working from home, as this example, is not fair. It's been forced upon us and we've had to deal with it, but some people have thrived in it and some people have not. Not everyone's set up for it. So how do you create consistency and yet fairness? Because not everybody needs the same thing. And I think that's the same in the space of D&I and D and I and B, belonging. And you could add fairness to that. You could put diversity, inclusion, belonging, and fairness. And the list could go on, because it's around making things a fair place to work, making a place a fair place to work, and making a company a fair place to be. We don't all need the same things, but we all do want to feel like we belong there. And I think this is something that's becoming more and more apparent in the philosophy and the culture of organisation, but actually the workplace as a physical thing has come into play now as well, because it didn't really matter. You needed flexibility, perhaps you didn't want to work 5 days a week in the office. Perhaps you needed a bit of flexibility because you had childcare responsibilities, or you had caring responsibilities, or you had something else that you needed to think about. You yourself had a need that you needed to sort of address. But now you've got, someone said to me the other day, what is the job of the office? What is the job of the office? And that is a big question that everyone's grappling with. And, in the space of fairness and equity, everyone's talking about that at the moment and trying to wrestle with what that means.
So I'm just thinking now, over this year, businesses have changed. Some businesses have unfortunately had to reduce their headcount. I'm assuming that from what you see, the market, there's a lot of talent in the market, and I'm just wondering, how can organizations think about this? Think about the talent that's out there, think about their own pipelines, and get the best out of this. As I use it as a strategic advantage as well, because now is the time to really attract some very, very good people who are out there to build for the future. I don't know what your views on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think retention, particularly now as we start thinking about the future, is absolutely front and center of organizations' minds at the moment, because the fear has gone. The sense of being petrified in its most literal sense has dissipated, and everyone's thinking about what's next. And we've got to work extra hard to keep people feeling motivated, keep people feeling engaged, and the nurturing of talent is really, really important, because it's an economic factor. You've worked hard to keep everybody throughout this tumultuous year. If you've been lucky enough to be able to hold on to your employees, it would seem a terrible waste now to lose them all, because the marketplace is opening up. I mean, it's busy out there. Those organizations that are doing well are now looking forwards, making plans, and we've got lots of searches on, which means that we will be sort of tapping people on the shoulder to have conversations with us about opportunities outside their current organization. And if we're doing it, then everybody's doing it.
So in your view, and from what you're saying, what do you think leaders should be focusing on as we're going into this new hybrid way of working, in terms of building their organizations?
I think as we move into what we are defining as hybrid, organizations need to think, and their leaders need to think about what their business should look like from a capability point of view. Can they be modeled in the same way as they always were? What is the future of the workforce? I'm hearing phrases like collaboration infrastructure. What is your collaboration infrastructure? Which I'd never heard of before as a term. It is going to be around communicating to the business what they think the future vision of work is going to be, but also engaging their staff on the journey. There'll be a lot of people who are very worried about what the future of the work's going to be, because whenever there's change and it's forced upon us, we shut down, we worry, we think that things are going on without our knowledge. And I think leaders need to have a very strong engagement, very strong communication style. And it doesn't have to have all the answers. That's the other thing, is that nobody here knows all the answers. And there are outliers that are way ahead of the game in this, and there are those that are retrenching and going back to the old ways, and we all know who they are. But there are lots of organizations in the middle that are going to work their way through this. So leaders, I think, need to engage with their staff, keep thinking about the leadership styles that they need and the leadership capability they need to work well in this new hybrid world, and think of what they want from their office space or from their people as they go forwards.
That's really helpful and very interesting, Ashley. I'm just thinking about all that we've been talking about right now. We're going to hear this word hybrid quite a lot, isn't it, thrown around the place?
Yeah.
And the question
not just about cars.
Exactly, not just about cars. And the interesting thing is, what hybrid is going to look like, my hypothesis is going to look different for every organization, because they're going to do how it works. There's going to be no mandated way. I mean, lockdown was a mandate, but hybrid's not going to be that way. And so a really key thing, I think, what we've been talking about is, whatever the hybrid is, how do leaders and organizations create the right environment for their people to thrive? And you spoke about different people are going to need different things, and those differences are now going to get heightened in this way as well. So that's a really key agenda to be focusing on quite strongly, in terms of how we build the organization.
It's really good. It's going to be hard to not penalize one or other. If you really want to get back to the office, does that make you a better person than someone who doesn't want to get back to the office? How do you create a sense of what is valued, and not reward those who stay put, or not reward those who want to get back? I think that's, again, a sort of concept to grapple with.
But you raised you raised a very important question, which is it's going to take something else from leaders to be cognizant of all this in whatever they mandate for their organization, and it's going to take something else for people in work to be also adapting. So adaptability is going to be a very big part of this process as well in terms of what's happening. Olivia, it's been fantastic. I hope you get to go out and enjoy some of that the sunshine and some of the warmth that's there. And we'll catch up very soon. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you. Talk soon.